Thanks for tuning in to reDefine for the second part of our interview with iconic portrait artist Art Streiber. We continue our chat as he tells us his greatest limitation is the amount of time he actually gets to work with his high-profile subjects, and how focusing too much during a shoot can actually make you lose the perfect shot. Also, a question from my fairly obsessed young daughter. What was it like to work with Justin Bieber?
Special thanks to our sponsors, Adorama, the photography people, and T1 Line, the voice and data solution experts.
And so how often do you usually get here before shoots? You?
I insist on being at a shoot at least 2 or 3 hours in advance. If I haven't scouted the location, 3 or 4 hours in advance.
My goodness.
If I've scouted the location, 2 or 3 hours in advance, because the kinds of people that I'm photographing don't have a lot of time,
right,
and appreciate efficiency. And most of the people I photograph don't really like having the picture taken.
Really?
Or don't enjoy, I mean, they might enjoy the process eventually, but I liken it to dentistry. You know, it's something they have to do, but they wouldn't choose to do it. So we try to make it as smooth and efficient as possible. So if we get to the location 2, 3, 4 hours in advance, we can park, we can unload, we can build our light, we can organize stuff, get it out of the way so that our subject can come in, sit down, and we can have 3 or 4 setups lit and ready to go. So
you can just kind of painlessly move them through.
Exactly, because we've had, over the last 2 months, we had 15 minutes with Steven Spielberg, and we had 10 minutes with Clint Eastwood, and we had an hour with Martin Scorsese. So we're photographing these very high-profile people who have a lot of demands on their time, and out of respect, we have to be incredibly efficient.
What is the most complicated shoot you've pulled off? Because you have some elaborate work.
We tend to specialize in complicated shoots. Complicated shoots. Wow, too many come to mind.
You're like flooded.
Let's see, I'm going to say, recently we photographed the cast of The Princess Bride for Entertainment Weekly.
I saw that.
And that was complicated because one of the cast members, Mandy Patinkin, could only be there at 7 a.m. Everybody else showed up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to be photographed at 4 or 5. So there was some math and some physics that had to come into play.
What physics do you do with it? Like,
well, the physics of where that person was in the room and their energy, their moment,
yes,
and how it relates to the person that they're standing next to, even though they're not going to be there.
Right.
It's more math, honestly, than physics.
You've seen a tremendous amount of change since you went. And when did you first get into photography?
In 8th grade, my grandfather, a very, very advanced amateur, had his own darkroom, and he sold me a Canon AE1 for $5.
A Canon AE1 for $5.
Threw in the lens for another $2. Sold it to me and my brother. I had already been using my father's Nikon F, and I started shooting triacs at school and brought it back to my grandfather's darkroom. Printed, developed the negatives, printed with him, and then high school newspaper, high school yearbook, college newspaper, communications major, and I really wanted to be, because I really didn't know that this kind of magazine photography existed, because honestly it kind of really didn't in the 80s. It really wasn't until Vanity Fair came along in the early 90s and reinvented magazine portraiture. To some degree. Esquire was always there. I want to give it its due. But anyway, I thought I was going to be James Noctway or Sebastian Salgado and be a globe-trotting photojournalist, and then through a series of unlikely events, ended up where I am today. I did an internship at Life magazine. I did an internship at the Riverside Press Enterprise. I was in newspaper photography.
So I mean, it sounds like you've gone through a progression of gear. What are you shooting with now?
I've been shooting Canon 35 all my life. And then I started shooting the Pentax 6x7 because I thought, well, and I was completely self-taught in that respect. Well, this is easy. It's just a larger 35mm camera. This is a blast. So I'm shooting that, and I'm shooting that, and I'm doing a lot of interior stories. And the Polaroid, if you wanted to shoot a Polaroid with that camera, you had to shoot a different body. So you had to take this camera off the tripod, put the Polaroid body on the tripod, and my crew started whining at me. Why don't you just shoot the RZ? I don't want to shoot the RZ. Just shoot the RZ. So eventually I started shooting them in the RZ, and I just fell in love with the RZ. And then when digital was born in medium format, I started shooting the Hasselblad, and I've been shooting the Hasselblad digitally ever since. I was just talking to one of my closest friends who's a very talented photographer about a shot yesterday that got away that I didn't think about until this morning. So
like you didn't think about it until you were out of the situation.
Oh my God, yeah, because there's so much pressure.
It's like having a great comeback, but the person walked away. Yeah.
There you go.
Do you feel that way sometimes? Like, it's so good in here, I have to get it out here.
Yeah, I've gotten to this point, fortunately, where I can see the photo, or I can see an idea for the photo. And I just have to figure out if it's appropriate, and if it's too expensive, and can we pull it off, and the time constraints, and then convince the subject and the magazine that this is a great idea.
Which is why you said that when you do work with video, you direct it, and you make sure you're not holding the video. Is that part of why? Just to be able to stand back and
to get the performance that I want. I'm still directing the lighting. I'm still telling the camera where I want the camera to be.
Right.
But I have to talk to my subjects.
Right.
And one of the great downfalls of digital is chimping. And it's actually, it's a legitimate sociological term now.
Yes.
It's a condition started on the floor of the Lakers game when digital first came out. And if you're doing portraiture,
yeah, where's this?
And you're not eliciting some kind of response or emotion or moment from your subject, then you're not maximizing the shoot.
Yeah. My just turned 10-year-old is obsessed with Justin Bieber. How was that shoot? What was it like for you?
That was intense. You know what? That's going to vault to number one.
Of complicated?
Of complicated, yes. Yes. It was an incredible honor to be asked to shoot a Vanity Fair cover. The irony is I photographed my first assignment for Vanity Fair about 17 years ago, and Justin is 17. So that was not lost on me. Justin didn't care. But I had this idea to hire, 20 screaming teenagers.
Who, against their will, took the job.
Well, that's actually a really great story, and that's one of the great regrets of my career is that we didn't videotape my talking to these girls beforehand, because they had no idea what they were doing that day. But anyway, Justin had 3 or 4 hours that day for the shoot. And we got him at 9 o'clock in the morning at a house up in the hills, in Beverly Hills, and we didn't have, because the shoot was so massive, really didn't have the money for a massive pre-light. Justin shows up, we do 1, 2, 3 setups, and at 10:30, Justin has to leave. And all the girls show up. And the girls sit down and they have no idea what they're doing, except now they're looking at, there's 20 girls. And I said, all right, you guys, how many of you guys have cell phones? And they raised their hands. I said, all right, give your cell phones to your parents. Okay, we've got a really intense, complicated shoot today, and we have very little time with our subject, and I need you guys to be professionals, and they're all hired models. You cannot tell anybody. You can't text, you can't tweet, you can't email, you can't whisper, you can't telephone, you can't tell everybody. And now the girls are like, they're...
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I still haven't told them who it is. And they're looking at their moms, and they're looking back at me, and I said, today's subject does not have any time, and we've got to be really, really efficient. And mainly because he's got a concert tonight in San Diego. So the real Bieber fans immediately, they know his every movement.
Squeal.
So they're shrieking, they're crying, they're looking at their mother, they're grabbing the furniture, they're shaking, they've got goosebumps. I said, we're photographing Justin Bieber. Ah! had just like exploding hormones and tears and hair being pulled out. This is the Beatles, you know, shrieking girls. And I did a lot of picture research and found these great pictures of
No,
Elvis.
Oh, and that was that what you modeled it after? Yeah. Interesting. I was in grocery store checking out, pulled it, put the magazine, flipping through. I'm like, who shot this? Art Streiber. I've got to meet him.
Thank you.
So I am so. I mean, I just thought it was creative. It was fun. It was spirited.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And if I can muster one of those ideas for a shoot and execute it the way I see it in my head, I'm psyched.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
For taking a lot of time. It looks like the army has arrived and everything's going.
Slowly but surely.
Best of luck, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Art as much as I did. Join us next time when we sit down with Australian Portrait Photographer of the Year, Sue Bryce. But in the meantime, have you ever thought to yourself, there is too much wonky color in this room? Fix it up or jazz it up with the MPS sticky filters for your on-camera flash. Little gels that you can slap onto your flash, and voila, you have some fun fills. They are super cheap and fit on most flashes and come in a variety of colors. You can buy them at adorama.com.